I'll turn my camera off. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to start sharing my screen, Robin.
Right.
There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's this little one with me in it, I think.
Ah, no, you can't then yet. Just bear with me. Let me just try sharing again. Share my screen.
Ah, what is on and under Carrington Moss? The slideshow, yeah.
That's it. Okay, so before we start, Robin, do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself and where you got into this interest in what's on and under Carrington Moss?
Thank you. Yes, well, my name's Robin Grayson, and I'm from the other side of the big cut, the Irwell or the Manchester Ship Canal. I'm from Barton upon Irwell originally, Eccles, then Salford, then Manchester. And I studied for my master's degree at Manchester, the underground boreholes, as many as I could find, between Wigan, Manchester and Liverpool, and tried to sort out the geology and also what the heck the rockhead surface was doing, going up and down all over the place when the ground surface was often quite flat. So that's I do know quite a lot about the ordinary underground, but then I also know quite a lot about the what you might call a bit more technical underground, which is what the frackers use and the oil and gas industry use. And we'll be mentioning this briefly in the presentation that may make you sit up a bit. I've also spent a lot of time in exotic places like Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and then finally Afghanistan, doing geology and environmental stuff with pretty high level, as about as high as you could get stuff. And I've also been a lecturer at Wigan Mining College for 10 years, and also at Lancashire Enterprises for some years. And probably important to mention that for a few years I was a county councillor on Greater Manchester. So as my brother used to say when he was trying to get at me, he said, "Robin, you're just a know-all but know nothing." I thought, oh, thank you. So I've got wide knowledge of different things. I'm heavily involved at the moment, a little bit Carrington Moss, but especially with Rybank Fields and to some extent with Hough End Fields in trying to get technical information to trip up the councils that are really quite arrogant and badly educated, the officers, I would say.
Right. Okay.
So,
well,
there we are.
Thank you for that. Just before we move on to your presentation, I'm just going to see if I can find, did we have somebody else join the meeting there and did they get in successfully? Just going to see if I can see. No, did somebody else manage to join the meeting? Have a little look. Okay, Robin, well, we'll continue with your presentation then.
Okay,
so
which slide are we on now?
We're on the high view power.
Right, good. A question for the audience, select audience. Do any of you know anything about high view power at Carrington?
I don't.
I'm hoping you'll say no.
Yeah.
It's a really important thing. It's a private company. It's had £10 million off Boris and his crew to do something very special, which is actually to, it's almost unbelievable. It's a method of making a battery without lithium and without storing the energy up a mountain or a tidal barrage. It's stored in Carrington, this energy, enormous quantities. And now for the trick they've got, what they do is they turn water from, sorry, they turn air, ordinary air that we're breathing right now, into what? Into, no, not just ice, but to liquid and then solid water. Sorry, get it there eventually. Solid air at minus God knows what, seriously cold. So it's in effect compressed air. And then when you want to use that energy the next day, or when the wind's not blowing, you simply open the valve and let it rip violently through turbines, and there you've got off-peak energy being used during peak times. If you figure that out, it means that Carrington has got a pivotal role in innovation at actually getting more energy out of offshore wind farms, for example, than you could ever hope to do from any other industry. And why Carrington? That's important to tell you. It only makes sense if they put this facility where there's a huge, what should we call it, convergence of the national grid, so that they can actually play the casino, as it were, of the national grid on prices and timing, and rapidly boost the electricity that's available when the wind stops, for example, offshore. So that's the first point I'd like to make. That's all I want to say about it. If after the meeting you want to, or in discussion, you want to search Highview Power, you'll find limited information about it. So it's either the world's biggest con, or else it's the world's biggest invention since sliced bread for addressing climate change. It's to get a lot more energy without lithium, without silly batteries, just from compressing air with surplus electricity and then letting it rip when you actually want the energy. Okay?
Super.
So somewhere at Carrington is this view. That's all I can tell you.
Okay. Yeah. What I was going to suggest, Robin, is that people save the questions to the end, but maybe you want to stop every now and again and see if there are any questions from the audience.
Oh, that's good. Well, I can't give you any more information other than go and look at their website.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Thank you. So we'll move on to the next one then.
Right. We're going to go through finding some information out, and this is, it sounds a bit off-putting, interactive map. Ooh. UKOGL, as somebody said, what the hell is that? And it's UK Onshore Geophysical Library. Oh, it sounds dreadful, doesn't it? But it isn't once you get to know it. But first, you need to go through these steps. So next slide, please. And when you go to their main map, you think there's too many dots on this map, I don't like it. That's because you have to go to the interactive map full screen. Next slide, please. And okay, still not good enough. Next one. Get rid of all the clutter. And then where are we looking for? You can put it in the search facility. How about Carrington Moss? I think that's what will work. So click the next one, please. Ah, we're on Carrington. Yeah? Can we all see Carrington in the middle there?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, somebody should say yes, otherwise I'll be here all day.
Yes, yes, I can see it. It's there.
This is just a topographic map. There's nothing special about it. And what we're going to see is back in the 1970s and 80s, when I was a big cheese in onshore oil and gas exploration, where the oil and gas companies went, simply banging the ground, what's called seismic, vibroseismic, and getting the echoes, like you echo sound for fish.
Yeah.
Well, if you have some really big trucks on your little roads and thump the ground, then the geophysicists, which I'm not, the geophysicists can record the echoes and see where they are bounced back. When they bounce back, there must be a layer of rock doing the bouncing. Next one, please. And how about that? There it is. So this is probably the first time anyone in Carrington's ever looked at this. Do disappoint me and say you know all about it.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. All right. Well, the green lines with these funny numbers, this is where the seismic gigantic trucks went. And you may say, oh, they'd never fit down there. Well, they did. Sometimes it was before the houses were built. So you have to bear that in mind. I think you can pick out one or two main roads. And they even tried it taking a bubble gun along the Manchester Strip Canal, not to get echo sounding of fish, but to hopefully echo rocks deep underneath. Now, it didn't all work. I should point that out. And the red lines up in the top left-hand corner, they're exactly the same, but they were done by the National Coal Board, trying to find more coal for Astley Green, Moseley Common, and other such deep mines. And they had to try and predict where the coal was going to be. So a lot of information. Let's see what it's like now. Next one, please. Well, here we go. We've clicked on one. You see the line that's blue?
Yeah.
The line that's blue, you can find this chart and it gives you information. And we're going to go for, well, operator of this is a company called Premier. It was in 1987, which they call vintage. I'd like to be a veteran, but on this I'm a vintage. And the line name has got this funny code, blah, blah, blah. It's 6.8 kilometers long. All this is boring. Next one, please. So now we have this sighting bit. We're going to go for color seismic. Why? Because color's more fun. Let's view what they found by echo. Whoa. So there we are. Kind of remember where that was. You can look at all this afterwards anyway. It won't disappear. The ground, this is now think of a Christmas cake and a slice through it. This is a slice through a piece of the Earth's crust, not to the bottom of the crust. It's not that good, but you can see there are different reflectors, as they're called, seismic reflectors, where the density of the rock changes, something happens. So there's a blue layer, a red layer. I'm not going to tell you what they are, or I'll be here all day and I'll get it wrong anyway. But you can see that there is a lot of information, and there's an incredibly level looking one coming up as a number 500 on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Can you find a 500?
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a straight line, but to the expert eye, like I can pretend to be, because you don't know what I'm talking about, but therefore you can see it isn't a straight line. It starts to do strange things. This is due to faults and folds, but very gentle, nothing severe. Okay, so this is kind of okay. So this is far too deep to be of real immediate interest, unless you have fracking or such like contemplated in the area, which we'll come back to very briefly in this presentation. Next, please. So let's slice the cake a different way. Oh, it isn't flat after all. It's actually sloping from the north. Quite steadily, all this, yeah?
Yeah.
Welcome to the coal seams and things like that, going deeper and deeper under Cheshire. All right? I'm not going to try explaining it. That is far too deep, this information. But to show you what is available in the area on all those lines. And if you want a good horror story, HS2, the railway line that never actually gets finished, the line for that has been decided without using any of this information, which means it's over Cheshire Salt half the time and will cost an absolute fortune to build, even bigger than the fortune people know already. Next one, please. And what is this? Well, this is the current position. The green, it's not nice green belt. Sorry about that. It just happens to be green. These are the concession areas to oil and gas companies right now. Okay. and these are called pedals, which is sounds like bicycling or Boris on a bike. It's not. Pedal here means Petroleum Exploration and Development License. Ouch, that means they can explore and they can develop it if they find it. That's oil or gas. So let's take where we're interested in. It's this triangular thing. I can't read it properly. It's INEOS Industries is the company. Okay.
Yeah.
There's also very small little squares. These are worth knowing because they're just really an irritant in some ways. This is where you've got an old coal mine that might be releasing a lot of gas. Okay, or has been. They did release a lot of gas, but these are now fading out. Why? Because they're full of water now. The water has pushed the gas out over time from the old workings. So if you want to know which areas are under current threat because somebody actually has the license, it's just the green areas. So if you're in Atherton or Eccles, not Eccles, sorry, oh dear. Eccles or Bolton, you're okay. Or St. Helens, you're okay. Or most of Liverpool, you're okay.
But the most of Trafford is green, isn't it?
Sorry?
Most of Trafford is green, if you look at this.
Yes, but green for, not green for Greenbelt, but green for oil and gas pedals.
Exactly.
So this is worth knowing, and your officers will, well, the media will tell you, don't worry, they've gone away, they're defeated, they're not coming back. Sorry, if they're not coming back, why are they holding on to the licenses? It costs them money just to pay. It's not a lot of money, but nevertheless, they're keeping up with the payments of those. And typically, if you go into this site, you can click on and it will tell you for each one of these how many years the license has yet to run. And it's typically 10 to 20 years. They're playing a long game. And so, as the saying goes, beware, be conscious of it.
Robin, sorry to interrupt. I think Charlotte was wanting to ask you a question, were you, Charlotte? Sure.
I could probably answer these.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please. Yeah.
When can you give a date when this this exploration and?
So I couldn't hear you very well. I'm very sorry.
Are you there, Charlotte? You might have lost Charlotte. Just bear with me. You've gone on to mute. Oh, there you go.
Right. Can you give any information as to when this information was first drawn up?
The information is from last week. It's up to date.
It's up to date, is it? So
yeah.
How long have they had this information?
Sorry?
How long have they had this information?
Trafford, do you mean?
You know, because this is a kind of context
to show you how
our interest that we never hear about from the planners and the developers and the council and Greater Manchester.
Well, Greater Manchester, you need to know. I have spoken to the minerals officer. They have one member of staff responsible for mining, minerals, and refuse disposal. One person.
Right.
This was 2 years ago. I met her at the delegated authority in Salford at Swinton, and it was a bit embarrassing because she didn't know about the seismic lines existing.
Right.
She knew about these licenses, but not
Yeah.
all the information that sat there for the oil and gas companies ready to use if they want. So the Greater Manchester does not have the technical ability to keep on top of this.
All the resources.
Sorry?
Yeah. All the number of resources that they need, because you know there's 10 authorities in Greater Manchester, so I wonder if there is anybody at Trafford with skills in this area.
Well, please ask. I mean, it's possible. I'll just say it's unlikely, because they'll see if their standard reply is, oh, Salford is the lead authority in oil and gas exploration. You need to talk to them, and then ring up Trafford and see how far you get. They're underneath Andy Burnham's office. But Andy Burnham, no matter how good he is, hasn't got the technical staff around him. He's got huge universities full of geologists that can do this, but they're not in the machinery of local government.
No.
And so you may remember in Salford on Carrington Moss, hang on, wrong one.
Chat Moss. On Chat Moss.
Thank you, on Chat Moss. There was an enormous problem with a fracking company drilling much deeper than it had planning permission for, and that arose because the county council, who was the Mineral Planning Authority, and Salford actually the delegated authority within the Minerals Planning Authority, had no experience in this subject area. It happened again at Ellesmere Port, where in both cases they had got permission, INEOS, again, the one that we're concerned about, to drill through the coal measures and maybe just tickle a little bit into the Bowland Shale, which is the really good stuff from a fracking point of view. But they went deeper in both cases, and the one at Ellesmere Port just carried on and on and on, all the way down till it went through all the Carboniferous limestone of Derbyshire at depth and clanged into Welsh slate. And they're refusing to give up that borehole because they want to do tests in it. And the government has been wobbling for 2 years since the public inquiry at Ellesmere Port, with where the government took the decision off the inspectors, who were clearly going to say, no dice, you can't do it. And it's sat in the government offices waiting for the government to take a decision.
Very interesting. Okay.
I'm not exaggerating, it is that bad.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Charlotte,
anyway, we need to get to Carrington during this presentation.
Let me just double check. Charlotte, did you have any other questions, Charlotte?
Say that again, Marge.
Did you have any other questions?
No, just a comment, if I may make it. I'm fascinated by this because all the time I've wondered what the blockage was for all the concerns about the development of Carrington Moss. I think this explains it for me, that these people have a hold upon information about potential future interest in Carrington that are suspected, but until now I've never known about. I've been thinking maybe Peel Holdings were involved, or maybe they are, but clearly it's the oil industry and others connect the energy industries. And my other question, therefore, one further question, I don't want to hog it, but then that raises a question about how does this relate to the current concerns about conservation and climate change and everything else?
Yeah.
This is about fossil fuels, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's an interesting crossroads. And
it is. Well, I'll tell you what I think we should do here. Let's let Robin carry on with his presentation, but I've made a note of that, Charlotte, and I think we should come back to this and have another conversation.
I've said enough, and I'm fascinated by what.
No, just don't shut up. We want to hear from you. But basically, I think what we should do is come back to this and have another conversation about it. You know, just focused on this and climate emergency and how the two link together, and perhaps get a little bit more detail, if we can get hold of it, Robin, about these licenses. And I think maybe we might have to do a Freedom of Information Act request to get more information on that. But
well, before you go rushing off in various directions, I'm very happy to present a longer presentation just on this topic.
Super. Super.
Just to tell you that the organisation that keeps this library, the United Kingdom Onshore Geophysical Library, is very open and democratic in releasing information. On this map, it's possible, obviously you can't do it off this, it's a PDF, but on their site, you can click on one of these and it will tell you when the license was issued, when it expires, who's got it, and what the conditions are. Most are in breach of the conditions, which is also interesting.
Wow. Well, I think we'll probably
let's leave it at that, yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll probably want to invite you back to look at that in more detail, Robin. So
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, let's move
Next
on
slide,
now.
please.
Yeah, yeah.
So now we've come into the what you might call the safe territory for officers and public, which is British Geological Survey, which is a government-funded body which is supposed to give neutral advice to local authorities, mining companies, government agencies, etc., etc. It, however, has got very carried away in pro-fracking in the past. It's got a bit burnt from that, and it's learning how to behave itself again. Okay, so we're going to go into their information to end up with ordinary boreholes, okay, on Carrington Moss. So this is the first place you go to. The search is BGS Viewer, right?
Okay.
And that's what you see in front of you. And when you get there, you get, oh, a map of, looks like modern art paint. Vandals have been attacking the map. But each colour is a different bit of geology, as I think you know. And at the top it says Geology of Britain Viewer Classic. Oh, all right. Well, for the moment, we don't want the classic version. We want this tiny writing, try the 3D version of the Britain Viewer. Next one, please. There you are. And it's more or less the same, but it avoids some problems later on. So you go, this is just recommended, go this way. And then, aha, you can search for Carrington Moss. I think that's where we want to go, isn't it? So it's typed up in the right-hand corner. And when you do that, oh, there's Carrington Moss. We want to get rid of this black line down the middle. And you do that by going to the left-hand corner where it says menu and just click from 3D to 2D. See what it says 2D?
Yeah.
And you'll see that black line has gone now. Well, that didn't hurt, did it? I hope. What have we got here? Well, first be careful because these colors mean very different types of things. So the pink, the rocks aren't pink. In fact, these are what are called superficial deposits, shallow deposits, and these are sands and gravels. All right, now that's an enormous amount. You may have wondered why Sale is so flat. I know that sounds a rather objectionable comment, maybe, but it's in the pink, sorry, because pink is the color for glacial fluvial sands and gravel. And I'm not going to try and explain what those are, except at the end of the last ice age and during the last ice age and the ones before, enormous amounts of deltas were coming out. The ice doesn't just melt. It throws out from the melting ice all the stuff it's been transporting, and the washable stuff is sand and gravel, and that's what you've got over that huge area. Okay, now there's then now the tricky bit. There's two browns on there. There's one which has got the bullseye where we landed, the sort of black circle. Yeah. That is Carrington Moss, meaning peat, in the professional judgment of the British Geological Survey. All right, but not this stuff up above that looks like some devil horns or something. That is the Shirtley Hill Sands. which is extremely good for making glass. So further west, Pilkingtons use that around St. Helens. They have done for years. And typically, I can tell you where it lies, this sand. It's underneath a lot of the peat.
Yeah.
So imagine if you peel back the peat, you would see a lot more of this thin sand. It's wind-blown sand, so it tends to be pretty fine, you know, like you're getting a dust storm, but not dust. It's tiny grains of sand. And then the peat on top of it, well, hey, that gets the acids from the peat, clean up the sand, and then you can make glass from it.
Oh.
Slightly potted version.
Sorry, sorry, Robin, could you just give me 1 second? Sarah, I've got a message from Sarah in the chat saying she's not getting sound. No, I'm hearing you fine. Sorry. Is everybody hearing Robin okay? Because I'm hearing him fine, but is it just Sarah that's not getting sound? Is anybody else? Or should I better say it differently? Can everybody else hear Robin? Because if you're not getting sound, you won't be able to hear what I'm saying. Mary says she can hear. Okay, I think Sarah must have a problem, and I'll respond to her in the chat. Sorry, Robin. Do you want to carry on?
Yeah. Hello, who's just come in? That's not going. These bits keep flipping into my screen from I don't know where. Anyway, never mind. Around the top edge of the screen, you will find the Mersey River meandering about. You can see the blue meandering line. It's in yellow, and the yellow is, as you've probably guessed, it's the river sand and silt and some gravel. Okay.
Yeah.
You've then got what should we call it? Orange bits. They're bits of terrace, which meaning where the river has been higher up in what should we say, 10,000 years ago or something like that. Okay. So important for you is where the new road's going, and I can't tell you where it's going, so that's your job after the meeting.
I can give you a quick. Can you see my mouse on the screen moving? Can people see the pointer on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to come from here and go across here and up to here. So it's coming this way. So it's going mostly across the pinky stuff. I think it might cut across the top corner of the peat moss, and then come into the peachy stuff, which I think you were saying was sandy soil.
Well, the pink is the
pink sandy
sand and gravel, meaning big,
yeah,
can be big boulders even, but yeah. But the last bit of the pale chocolatey stuff, that is the Shirtley Hill sands, a thin sand.
Yeah.
Well, the good news then, thank goodness for that, meaning the boreholes for the road and the road largely miss the peat.
They do, but the peat will still be impacted because they'll drain. But obviously the land here, here particularly, well, in fact, going all the way down here is very wet. And I don't mean a couple of inches. For 6 months of the year, there can be feet of water here, surface water flooding.
Right.
And they will want to drain that because obviously they won't want a road that's flooded. And if the water goes this way, of course, over to the east, it will go towards the houses in Sale West. The water, so they'll have to drain it, and that will have quite a major impact on the peat moss because whatever they do here will impact particularly this part of the peat moss.
Right.
Yeah.
But from my narrow perspective, it helps explain by when I look quickly at the borehole records for the road, it didn't find much peat.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
fits in with the map and what you just said.
Yeah.
But it needs checking, of course, by you guys, not me.
Yeah.
To put on top of the, make this into a bigger map and then put dots on where the road is and the boreholes for it and see if
Yeah.
it adds up. All
Yeah.
right, so
Yeah.
you've got the basic idea. And oh yeah, sorry, I missed out Sunderland Brook.
Yeah.
Which is only, relatively speaking, a small brook, but nevertheless it has alluvial, that's bits of sand, bits of mud, bits of stuff moved by the brook over thousands of years. And that's the yellow streak across the bottom, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
The blue, pale blue at the very bottom, is very important. And the fact there's only a little bit of it on the map is also important. There's a little bit sticking out at Carrington up there, if you can see it. There's a bend in the Mersey, a tiny blip. Where are you with your pointer, madam?
Yeah. Yeah.
Up there, thank you. Now, although there's only 2 blips of it, that is the famous boulder clay, which covers most of Manchester and will be underneath, we hope, most of these layers we're talking about. So in the perfect world, the peat is on top of the Shirtley Hill sands, which is windblown, which is very thin. And then there's the nice pink stuff, which is sand and gravel. And then below that is the actual, the pale blue stuff, which is a huge mass of material pushed around by the ice. It's variably known as boulder clay or till, and then other fancy names that geologists use that I don't bother using. Boulder clay or till is good enough. And if you've been to Manchester University to have a look round, go into the old quadrangle, and there's an enormous boulder there, big as a mini car, and that is a boulder found in the boulder clay in Manchester. So it can be full of surprises, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I think Mary's just added an interesting point in the chat. Sure. And I know Mary can't, we can't hear Mary. She can only put points in the chat. But what she's saying is that there's a natural spring that runs down the lane from Danewell Farm to the Moss, and it never dries up. So Danewell Farm is somewhere up here, and it will drain down this way. So and I think that's very interesting. I mean, we say it never dries up. They will want to dry everything up. They'll want to drain it so that we lose what's left of the moss. But in addition to that, if you're thinking about 200 HGVs an hour going down this this road that they want to construct across the moss, then it's going to bring an awful lot of pollution to the habitats, and we do have a lot of over 20 red listed birds and a number of endangered wildlife. And the other thing that we've got, of course, those very endangered things, and don't ask Barbara what the score is, but we've got Man United's training ground here. And we've also got Sale Sharks training ground, which is up here, and Sale Rugby's training ground. So these people who are sports people will be breathing in the air from 200 HGVs an hour. And that will also impact the people who are walking, cycling and horse riding across the moss. So we've got a number of different issues sort of all adding together here. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I'd like to add something to what you said.
Yeah.
It's a bit off my topic, but it's bang on your topic. I've studied the air pollution factors that affect footballers.
Yeah.
In the Bundesliga in Germany, so that's like our Premier League but German. And the Ministry of Labour wanted to find how does air pollution affect workers, and they couldn't find. They had to have workers that started work at the same time, finished at the same time, and operated in every town in Germany. So they chose the Bundesliga players. Right,
good idea.
The only group they could use, and they found an impact on the players that was very strong, and that was, it's very weird, this one, not the number of, this is with let's get it right, PM 2.5 if you want to make a note, small particles, and also PM 10 particles in the air. What they found was that when that was bad air over a stadium, then both teams would then, the players, it's not a question of scoring goals, it wasn't, that made no sense with the mathematics that they were playing with, but the number of passes they made in a match dropped. Why? Because their brains were not reacting fast enough to take decisions. Should I pass or not? Should I pass or not? They slowed down their brains. And the reason that the spectators didn't know was because it slowed down the spectators' brains as well. Right,
that's very interesting.
And that is public. It's not Robin, you know, having some funny cigarettes or something. I'll give you that information.
With another hat on, I'm actually organising a national meeting, which will take place on the 7th of December. So if you guys haven't registered for it, I will put a link in the chat before we close this meeting. And it is worth joining that, which is about all about air pollution and how we can engage communities more actively in air pollution. We're going to be doing 3 sessions, so I will talk to you, Robin, in a bit more detail about your Bundesliga project, because, you know, I think it's really important, and of course one of the big issues on air pollution, I don't want to sort of stray too much onto that on this talk, but one of the big issues is that when you're running around or riding a horse or a bike or walking fast, then you're obviously breathing more quickly, so you're breathing in more pollution. So these players will be breathing in more pollution when they're running around the field than they would be if they were standing still. So it is an interesting, whole interesting area. But I'm not going to get diverted onto that. Let's go back to your geology, Robin.
Next slide, please.
Next slide, please. There you go.
Oh, so here, this is just to show you when you get the real version, if you click on things, it will tell you what it is. I hope I've not made any mistakes here. Superficial deposits, peat, then it goes blah, blah, blah. More information, you can click on that if you want. So it's all there for you.
And could I just ask, does it give you any idea of how deep the peat is?
No, this is purely, that needs boreholes. This is simply just what the layers are that are reaching the surface.
Yeah. Okay, that's super. Yeah.
You want the boreholes, which is coming up shortly. Next one, please.
Next one. Okay.
But first we have, what have we got here? Shirtley Hill Sand Formation. All right, next one. We've talked about these. Let's just keep going.
Yeah. That's your alluvium. Yeah.
Yeah, thank God I got it right.
You did. And the sand and gravel.
And you can either call it fluvial glacial or glacial fluvial. I call it fluvial glacial. Never mind. And here is the famous till, the boulder clay, which they call diamictum, which is a stupid term.
Okay.
Next one. Now we've suddenly got rid of all this muck that's on top, peat, clay, sand, gravel. We're now looking at rock, what we call rock. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll tell you what these are. Next one, please. Oh, first of all, we've got boreholes. Right, now we're really talking. Each dot on here, circle dot, is a borehole record. The borehole record is in the National Borehole Archive, okay?
Yeah.
Which is open to the public. We are the public, we can see all these records online on this site. I'm about to say, it means that you can now know what is there. All right.
Yeah.
And in the legend here means explanation, by the way, nothing stop.
Yeah.
Boreholes, it says, and here are the depths of them. So blue are the very shallow boreholes, right? 0 to 10 meters. Green is 10 to 30 meters. Red is, red are the deep ones. And there aren't many of those for obvious reasons. It's expensive.
Yeah.
There's then a brown that is unknown. And then, just a minute, what's this?
Oh,
black ones are confidential or restricted. Ooh, you're supposed to go, ooh, boo at this point. Because a lot of these boreholes have been drilled with public money. Not all.
Right.
But when developers get planning permission, your council fails to insist that the borehole logs, the records, be submitted to the National Borehole Archive, and your council is at fault, especially if it's for something the council has funded. It also tells you, this map, there's a string of black dots going dun, 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 across the map, yeah?
Yeah.
There's one there that's probably a road. But this is for you to explore with your energy sometime and see what you've got. But the number of black ones is really disgusting. And it's a freedom of information question to the council. It's also something to fire up some councillors with. What are they doing with all these boreholes in the archive, but you're not allowed to look at them?
Yeah.
Who are they for?
Yeah.
Well, it's for other developers to look at. That's not good. So the developers know more than your council does, and more than you do, and they're planning roads and things. Nice.
Yeah. No, I think there'll definitely be some Freedom of Information Act requests going in here. And just so people are aware, we use a product, an online product called What Do They Know? And if anybody wants to have a look at previous Freedom of Information Act requests that I've made, you can go on to What Do They Know and do a search for my name, and I think about 7 requests will come up. If you do a search for Carrington Moss, you'll find other people have also raised Freedom of Information Act requests. And the benefit of using What Do They Know is that you can look at things that have been raised by other people. So it is quite a useful tool for FOI requests. So do take a look at that. Okay. Yeah.
And at a quick glance, not having robot eyes, I would say about 50% of the boreholes in your area are confidential.
Agree. Yeah.
And then, of course, on top of this is boreholes missing. Any big development of something will have had boreholes. Boreholes here, the word boreholes also applies to deep trenches, excavations, all those records. Your engineers, if you've got any on the council, which you most certainly will have, should be collecting them.
Yeah, and probably Amy is doing this sort of thing for Trafford, I would think now, because a lot of services like this have been.
No, Amy, excuse me, Amy is not. I know for a fact Amy is not doing it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Why? Because it means they have to do some work. And also, if they do this, they will keep the information. Why? They have no. They don't have to give it to the council if they don't want to. Right. Legally they do, but they can just simply say, oh, yes, we put it in the National Archive. But I'd be willing to bet a fair number of the black dots are Amy's.
Right. Well, the black dots, the ones that are missing, in my view, are the boreholes that they've dug for the road, because we know that they've done.
Oh, yes, they're not in at all.
They're not in at all. Yeah.
And so the first thing that you might do is that's you know, it's a bit like World War One battleship game. This, the ones that you can sink straight away is, why haven't they put the boreholes in the National Borehole Archive?
Yeah.
As they're legally required to do within a reasonable period.
Yeah. Yeah.
And will the officers make sure that is done?
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
It's your money that's been used.
Agree.
And you want to see those records added to this.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, super.
So don't take any prisoners, just blow them out of the water.
Yeah, no, we will. We
That's
might
the
even
purpose
ask
of
our local
presentation, is to
councillors.
empower you in different things. So
yeah.
Okay,
No,
next
super.
one, please.
Next one.
Oh, now this is something different.
Yes.
In this,
Charlotte will be familiar with this one, I think.
Well, let me check. Well, I don't think you'll be familiar with some of it, sure. But
can I ask you a question, please? Sorry.
Yeah.
in the
wait a minute, Robin. Can Charlotte ask a question? Yeah.
Given this information, but do you have details of the layers of whatever is in each of these boreholes? You know, have you been able to study them and see what the configuration is of the strata?
Yeah. I mean, good question. Go back one slide, please.
Yeah.
Right. On here, you can see coming to shallow level, but not actually sticking out the surface, because you've got the sand, the gravel, the clay, the peat on top, are different colored rocks. Okay. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, maybe about 4 or 5 colors. And the black solid continuous line, such as, if you can put your pointer on that one, for example.
And are all boreholes created for specific purposes by individual organizations like Shell and developers for whatever they want?
Well, just to broaden it out a bit, if you look at the borehole records, the black ones waste of time because you can't see what they've got. But if you then look at the red dots, red dots are more than 30 meters deep. There's only a few, but they're so important.
1, 2, 3, 4 right across, and there's this one down here as well. Yeah.
I don't know where you are now, but if you go over to Earlham Steelworks, you'll find some more the other side of the canal.
Yeah.
My problem, you see, is that when I read, I've looked at some of the geological results from only available, what's available on the geology, UK geology mapping, and you get this reference to superficial deposits of this, that, and the other, including peat. And yet the hearsay comments over history up to the 1940s is that there were substantial bodies of peat within the moss. And a lot of it seems to be raised peat because it's a lowland raised mire, but the geologists seem to dismiss these kind of accounts just on the basis of their boreholes. And I can't quite work out where this mismatch comes.
Okay, just go back one more slide, please.
Yeah.
Say that again, please.
That didn't help. Sorry, that was my mistake. It didn't help at all.
There's a kind of mismatch between the reports in the newspapers and the Manchester Guardian of the 1900s onwards and backwards, where people were saying it's incredibly dangerous to walk across the moss and you never ride a horse across the moss because it'll drown. And because there's so much peat there. And then when you read the geology surveys, they hardly mention the peat at all.
Well, we will be talking about the moss in a minute. Thank you. Thanks for putting that back on. If you look at a lot of these blue boreholes here, 0 to 10 meters, shallow ones.
Right. They're looking for specific purposes, are they then? Yeah.
They're supposedly in peat. Some
of them across the blue boreholes, some of them across where the green sections are.
Yeah, well, green's fine. That's even better. It's 10 to 30 meters. Then you hit the black ones, which you can't see, but the red ones are 30 meters or more. You have to be careful with those because they tend to be rather, what should we say, a bit sloppy through the peat and sand and so on. They're trying to get the big water. for the industries that go there. Nevertheless, they're the prime things that show you where the water is good. I'm going to give you a slight break now when I try on my sofa to do a daring experiment with a rock. Yes, a real rock, not bits of paper, to show you how the pink rock. Are you ready?
Still there.
Yeah.
Still there.
Right.
Right. We have here. We have here. Oh, I can see it on my list.
A piece of coal or a piece of
a pinkish rock, sort of. And it's a bit dirty.
Yes.
But the natural colour where I've broken it is sort of like these. This is Permo-Triassic, which all these rocks are. Right. And first of all, it's very soft. So in fact, this rock bits will come off. What I'm going to do over here on this wonderfully prepared, this is, what's the expression? Something I prepared earlier.
No,
Can you see that?
No.
I can't see it either, actually, so there's something not right here.
You need to lift it up a bit, I think.
Wrap you know, back.
Can you see this?
Yes, I can.
I'll tell you what I'll do. Let me stop. I'm going to stop presenting for a minute, and that will mean that you come on full screen.
Right.
Well, when you're ready.
Yeah.
You ready? Yes, we're ready.
Right. This is ordinary water, and I'll just prove it. From the Lake District, probably. But it just bear in mind, this could be toxic waste from somewhere to do with the Carrington oil refineries and such like, or a broken sewer, or United Utilities with their famous leaks. But anyway, this liquid, I'm going to try to make it go through this rock. This rock is supposed to be porous. This is Greater Manchester's biggest aquifer. It's nationally protected to a certain degree because it's such a perfect aquifer. Well, without more ado, I think I'll put it in the top of this bit too. Excuse me. I don't want to flood my apartment out. Right, I've got here a little bit of water. And you can see that water, I'm not going to do any more, I'm getting nervous of oh, that's annoying. Some of it sneaked underneath.
It's permeable.
Basically, it's gone into the sandstone. And if this was properly cleaned up, after about 20 minutes, it was under a tap. Not a tap that's running like that, but a tap that's just going bladip, bladip, bladip. Then after 20 minutes, it will go bradoing, 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 straight through. It's incredibly porous, and it's hundreds of meters thick. And whoa, it's underneath.
How far
Carrington
to reach that bedrock?
It's bedrock.
Yeah. It is bedrock, is it?
It's yes, it's not. Yeah. Where have you all gone? Where's my map?
Like 30 meters down.
Well, on the map that's just vanished.
I'll show the slide. I'll share my screen again.
Yes,
I stopped sharing so that whoops. I stopped sharing so that we could see your.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, that the theatrics are over, really.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm just going to go back to it now.
The sofa fills up with water.
Here we go.
Right. So on here, there at the bottom right, there's an explanation that's hard to find. This is an original old map. Obviously, I think you know that anyway. But this has got on top of it. Who's been making the boreholes in olden days? And here we are, we've got taken by oil refinery, 1945, taken by
Gas Corporation.
Gas Corporation, 1944, taken by
Petrocarbon.
Yeah,
Petrocarbon,
1946.
1946.
So they're not doing that for fun. They're doing that because they must have water for such installations. Okay.
Yeah.
So the logs for those all exist in that archive. This piece of paper came out of the borehole archive.
Yeah.
All right.
No. So Charlotte, I think there's 4 deep boreholes here going right across the moss, and 1 down here on past beyond Sindel Brook. I think it'd be worth us having a look at that data and seeing what it says. There are some medium depth ones. Most of them are up in Carrington itself, but there is one just below Birch Road that looks like it might be to the south of the Man United training ground or the north of Birch Moss Covert, and there's a couple of others at the top of Ashton Road here. So I think there's a couple that we can take, we can have a look at. Where it says unknown, Robin, does that mean the data is there but they don't know who did it?
It means it's a borehole. It's usually a well.
Right.
They know it's there because there's a hole and they've been told it and they put it on the maps. But it's unknown how deep it was, and you just sort of click on it and hope you get something.
Right. Well, we'll have a little bit more of an in-depth look at this, I think, Charlotte, and I think we will do some Freedom of Information Act requests. So let's take that offline and have a look at it in a bit more detail. Yeah. Super.
Right. So
okay, let's keep going.
The show.
Yeah.
Now we're on to something else.
That's fine.
Right. This is a book.
I can formulate the questions again.
If I'll just move all this clutter off my sofa. Right. As you can see, that's a photograph of this. I hope it is.
It is. Yeah.
So what is this? First of all, guarantee your officers have never seen this. Okay.
But it is available online, this book, isn't it, as well?
But
I know you've
never find it because if they don't look for it, they don't know it's there, and it's one of those. It's a document of BGS, top left, which has been going since 1835. But this particular document is a lot younger than that. It says British Geological Survey. What is it? It's a map, as you can see, of northwest England and North Wales. That's Anglesey over there. Llandudno, if you know where to look for it. Liverpool, Blackpool. I'm just showing off now. I'll shut up.
Yeah.
And this is just an example from the book. And this is for when they've tested the soils. Not a great depth. Do bear that in mind. In this particular case for zinc, where they've found lots of zinc. All right. Because zinc is an economic mineral. So, well, hey, if we can find where the zinc is, this will tell us where we can have mines, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, has anyone here ever been to Anglesey to a mining area called Parry's Mountain?
I haven't. I don't know if others have.
Well, I can tell you exactly where it is. It's this red blob in Anglesey.
Right.
Okay. For a time, that was the world's biggest copper and zinc mine. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, of course, with its dumps and nature, it affects all the soils around there. So it's a hot spot of zinc. And by the way, another map, copper and all sorts of things. There's another one here. If you go up the Conwy Valley,
yeah,
Dolgarrog and round there, and Betsy Y coed, as us Brits tend to stupidly call it. That's a huge zinc mine area of the past. And then if you go to Flintshire by the Dee estuary, that's lead and zinc in enormous quantities in the past, very close to the seaside along there. Fine. Good. Up, 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 up. I didn't say go.
No.
Very naughty looking ahead. Now, you see all these like dots like measles over where we are here.
Yeah.
Well, there is no explanation for those. They are actually industrial pollution hotspots.
Wow. Okay.
Where the industrial pollution is so huge, it spoils their map, because they're looking for where to put lead and zinc mines, and but then they realise, wait a minute, it's kind of important with this to carry on with this work, because we are showing as BGS, British Geological Survey, where all the most worst polluted land is. All right.
Yeah.
So welcome to Chat Moss and Carrington Moss. All right. Now, in this book, which I don't think I'll try opening, otherwise it'll get a bit silly. Lots and lots of maps. Oh, these. I'll just find.
We can put the link to the book online, can't we? So.
Yes, if you can do that for everybody, please. Yet another meeting. We could look at all this if you really want to, but it shows how bad it is on Carrington Moss for what are called heavy metals. That's lead, zinc, cadmium, copper, all sorts of stuff, which rival what you get in the lead, zinc, copper mines of North Wales, for example. So there's something seriously wrong. Now you can go to the next slide. Well, this is a nice change, isn't it? What is this? I'll read it out. Manchester's narrow gauge railways, Chat Moss and Carrington Estates. Now, before we go any further, has anyone seen this book before?
I think we have, and I'm sure Charlotte will have done. Have you, Charlotte?
Yes. Yes. The railways.
Yeah.
The narrow gauge railways. Well,
the important thing is that this book is tremendous for showing on Carrington Moss where every single railway was and what went along it as trains. By the way, those who've been interested in horses may be interested in that middle picture.
Mute again. Sorry, apologies. They got rid of the railways during the two world wars in part, didn't they? Because of the need for...
No. Sorry, excuse me. These railways, first of all, I think what they've drawn on here, first of all, that's the Liverpool-Manchester railway line, I think, across Chat Moss, just to confuse us all. This is a smaller system, not sure where. And this is the type of system carrying night soil from Manchester.
Yeah.
Now, how many of you heard of night soil before?
Yes, we've done quite a lot of work on the night soil and what's been put on top of Carrington Moss. So, yeah.
We could probably jump past this, but this book, if you have it, or if you've not got it, get a photocopy of the whole thing. It's out of print. Mine's actually at the photocopy shop at the moment, illegally taking a copy, because it's got numerous maps and dates in it and all sorts of stuff telling you exactly where material was dumped on Carrington Moss.
Super. Yeah.
It doesn't say very much about what the material was, but it is telling you where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it isn't just what you might call pure night soil, which would be overnight waste in the streets of Manchester and places like that. It's also what's coming from the factories, and a huge amount of horse manure. Why so many horses? Because there were millions of horses in Victorian days, and the horse manure, very valuable fertilizer. Not only was human waste used as fertilizer, but horse manure, terrific. And it wasn't just roses, this was for market gardening, the whole lot. But in addition to that, to make sure you've got, there's just, I think you know it already, but I will just repeat a bit, if you don't mind. The peat, the natural peat is acid peat, acidic. Not much will grow there except bog plants. You will not go a crop on unmitigated natural peat. You have to mix it with basic material, and the best for that is ash from sleeping fires, and basic slag from places like especially Earlham Steelworks, producing basic slag in huge quantities, and that neutralizes the peat. Mix it all together, stick some plants in, and as Bill Sarbuts would say, that type of mixture will grow rhubarb big enough to wheel to lean your bicycle next to. I think you've got to put a bucket on top to do that, actually. But anyway, so therefore, the highest grade agricultural land in the Manchester area was Carrington Moss, was most of Chat Moss. And then, we've filled up Carrington Moss. What do we do now? Well, the farms keep going, fizzling out as time goes on to simply simple crops and general pasture. Bogs may start to reassert themselves a little bit. Chat Moss, as you know, so we don't need to go through it. I think the next slide we need to go to before I talk too much.
Oh, there
we go. Now, you've not seen this before because I've drawn it. And it's cribbed from different sources. So it's all about heavy metals and other. So there's the elements: copper, lead, zinc, cadmium, tin, vanadium, phosphate, calcium, expressed as oxides the way chemists like to do. Now, the ordinary continental crust average, or mean as they say here, there's the parts per million of copper, of lead, of zinc, cadmium, tin, vanadium, phosphates and calcium oxides. That's the normal, you might say. Well, let's take the whole of this huge map that we've been looking at in the book, and that's the figures coming out. So copper is normally below the world average. Lead is significantly above, etc., etc., etc. But then let's cut to the chase. Topsoil in the mosses now. And these are 3 mosses that the British Geological Survey in this book especially concentrated on: Chat Moss, Carrington Moss, and over to the west near the coast, the Down Holland and Halsall mosses. And be careful, I've been very naughty and chosen the maximum. All right?
Yeah.
Not the mean, not the average, just the maximum. This is just the shock horror brigade coming in. So let's look at Carrington Moss and forget the others. Okay, the middle one there. And you can see, for copper, that's a lot of copper. However way you want to mix it up, that is astonishingly high copper.
Yeah.
Which has not come from the peat and has not come from the permafrost sandstones we're talking about. You do get some copper in Alderley Edge, but it's not as high as that.
No.
Let's go to the lead. Far higher there. We're in a 3,000 instead of very small.
12, yeah, 12 or 170.
Through the roof.
Mm.
Cadmium, it may look low this, but just look how low it should be. Cadmium is really not good for your health. It's good for your wealth if you're a big factory to use cadmium, but for human beings, it's not good at all. Look how low it is for the crust and topsoil generally.
Yeah.
Tin. Well, you know that tin, where do you find tin in England, please?
Cornwall.
Correct. Where do you find it in Manchester area, maximum? Carrington Moss.
Mm.
There's something not right here. So either this is tin cans in stupendous quantities, crunched up or rotting away. And I don't mean modern tin cans, which are aluminium and all sorts of funny things. I mean real tin that's very valuable. Or it's actually from solder.
Yeah, from the waste. Yeah.
So if you're a factory, you in Manchester or Trafford or wherever, you will have people soldering away to make aeroplanes or whatever it is, and all the little bits of waste tin in the solder get just chucked away and ended up on Carrington Moss.
Wow.
Vanadium, the same fate to that. So you have to be careful, just to caution you, we're talking about here maximums, yeah?
Yeah.
So don't overdo it. The main thing is, have the officers ever seen this book?
Mm-hmm.
And almost certainly they'll say, what book? And almost certainly they'll want to borrow it, steal it, or deny it exists. And the guys that did the boreholes for the road, yeah?
Yeah.
They make no reference to this book at all.
Right.
And this isn't deep geology. In this book, it tells you how deep they got the samples from, and it's just a couple of meters typically. But you need to read it rather than taking an ad lib from me.
Yeah.
So you need someone to go through this, please, from your group, with the function of looking this book up on internet and then reading carefully how they did the standard samples. And it won't say how we did it in Carrington Moss. It'll just say, generally, this is how we did it.
Yeah.
And then you can say, why haven't you put these on your map? They haven't.
Yeah. No, agree.
So there's something, what should we say?
We certainly need to do a lot of research in this area, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah, what is really depressing but good at the same time is that what I'm giving you is a lot of stuff that your officers are paid to do, but don't know how to do it because they've never done it before. Because they are very good, I would say, at surface things to do with nature, buildings, and then engineers do trenches, and that's about it really. But they don't really know about what's underground or in the soil.
No.
Not their job. It's not whose job is it? Well, it's not our job. British Geological Survey should do it, or blah blah blah. But if you get a group that actually mugs this up, first of all, if any of you or your children, relatives are looking for master's degrees or just have to write an essay on something, the first essay I ever wrote was on the geology of Eccles. And I was superstar because no one had ever done that before.
Brilliant.
So,
well, I think
there's the advice.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think we are going to have to.
That's the end of the show, I think.
More? Is that the last one?
Oh, what's this? Sorry.
That's all right.
We know all about. This is.
Can I ask a question? Or
yes.
Comment actually about your heavy metals.
Yeah.
the proximity of Earlham Steelworks and the gas company at Portington, because Manchester Corporation were dumping eventually slag on the moss itself, on Carrington Moss and on Chat Moss, which is possibly why you got such a massive spike in some of those heavy metals. You know, because the Earlham Steelworks, a lot of those metals are coming from the production of steel, aren't they?
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's perfectly fair.
And all the other stuff. I mean, they don't mention their chrome. Chrome is actually in the moss as well.
Yeah.
Well, this is just a sample list. This book has got about, I've forgotten now, about 30 different elements for maps. But to be honest, I just did enough that would fit on the screen as a picture.
Yeah. No, it's a really great example, and I think we need to look at it in a bit more detail. So I'm going to move on now because I know we're going to struggle for time. So
well, this is just very quick then. This is some information on what's going on positively on Chat Moss. It says carbon dioxide and methane fluxes, that means coming out, on a degraded lowland bog. Well, it's certainly degraded, undergoing restoration, hooray, with micropropagated sphagnum. Yes, you can actually transfer, as this article will tell you, small bits of sphagnum grown in little pots, stick them in the ground, and if you know what you're doing, pop, up they come, and if you're lucky, they spread. So there is a number 3 there. This Neil Wright person, who is number 3. It gives the game away. Micro Propagation Services, EM Limited, Leicestershire. Now, it's okay. They only do sphagnum. They don't do humans, as the joke goes. At least I hope not in office time. And so they are experts on this particular topic. And here you've got Manchester Metropolitan University and Edge Hill University near Liverpool, all involved in this, with, of course, the badge here of Lancashire Wildlife Trust that is guardian of it and has helped to get the money together, etc., etc.
Yeah, and we're doing quite a bit of work with these guys, so we're aware of this. And there's a chap actually who's a fabulous chap called Joshua Stiles, who's a horticulturalist, and he has been quite heavily involved in this. So yeah. Okay.
I mean, that's good. Just to tell you how geologists can stir up a pot, if you like. Lancashire Wildlife Trust, until 5 years ago, were unaware of night soil under Chat Moss. So we showed them the information, this book.
Right.
And then it takes time for everyone to learn it, and then they change staff so they don't know it, and so on. So just double check. You know, learn a bit from this book, and then talk to Lancashire and of course on your side of the border, Cheshire Wildlife.
Cheshire, yeah, we're in touch with both, and so no, that's very good. I think that was the last one. So just before I stop sharing, does anybody have any questions for Robin that haven't been raised yet?
Are you asking me, Marge?
Anybody got any questions? Have you got any more questions, Charlotte?
I'm just fascinated by everything I'm hearing, actually.
Yeah, I think it is fascinating.
The last piece as well looks really interesting.
Yeah.
The degradation of a moss and the reclamation of it. That's fascinating for me.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very grateful for your time, and for me personally, and I won't ask any more questions because I've got thousands of them.
Well, you can ask one or two if you wish.
I was going to say you can ask one or two, and a couple of things just before you do, Charlotte. Just a couple of things. Do have a look at our YouTube channel if you haven't seen it already. This is for everybody, not for Charlotte. because we have got on our YouTube channel a presentation from Andy Hankinson from Lancashire Wildlife Trust about the restoration of the peat mosses. And we've got a couple of other presentations on there. Of course, this presentation will go on there too now, Robin. So thank you for that. So Charlotte, did you have a couple of questions?
I've got no more questions now, no.
No more questions now. Okay.
I have questions, but I won't ask them now. I go back to the medieval period of, you know, the medieval Carrington family, and I come from that into the modern world. And it's just this massive sudden change from 1886 onward to the moss. It's really quite, you know, it's really when it was bought by Manchester Corporation, and what you've told me fits in with a lot of. I'm fascinated by that map you showed.
Yeah.
The green and the different spreads of it. I knew nothing about that. I always suspected there was something other going on, and that kind of helps me into understanding why the interest, why the silence of the people with the power over the landscape have kept silent. At least for me, it's not about a conspiracy. I understand they've got another agenda. They're looking at the material and chemical structure of the soils and what's underneath it. And in a sense, I've been talking about the living history on top of it. But there's a lot more going on under Carrington Moss than I realised.
Yeah. No, very, very good. No, it's hugely interesting. Does anybody else have any questions before I stop the recording? No? Well, listen, Robin, it just is for me to say a huge thank you for that. It's been so helpful. And I think the way that you went through the presentation, showing us how to access the material and then showing us what sort of thing that we can access has been really valuable. So we really appreciate that. And I think we probably will ask you, if you don't mind, to come back to us and talk in a bit more detail about some aspects of what we've talked about today, but we'll do a bit more research first and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to stop the recording now.